Moving on to item 6, Supervisor Carroll.
Madam Chair, we're sitting in session at the Board of Supervisors, and I put this item 6 on regarding a public records request, and I'm sad that Supervisor Miller is not with us at this time. I don't know if this is the time when her staff can get a hold of her. We have her staff in the room. Supervisor Miller unavailable.
They lost it.
Can you speak into the microphone?
It said they had a power outage.
So the phone went dead.
Does she have a cell phone? Can we try to contact her, or should I just delay this item?
They did.
Madam Chair, that's an unusual thing. Let me say that on this item, we still have records that are being withheld by the staff of publications as well as the county administration. Rather than once again have a meeting where Supervisor Miller is not here to discuss her own case, being that she's the one in substantial non-compliance with a public records request from not just the Weekly or the Citizen, not just the Weekly or the Sentinel, but also the Arizona Daily Star. I think we're incurring liability for taxpayers as long as this is delayed. It's been several Fridays since there was a claim at this dais by the supervisor that she would release all the documents requested, which according to the legal opinion of our county as well as the media outlets has not been done. I'd like to go ahead and request that we delay this until Supervisor Miller is in the meeting, number one. And if she has to leave early, please let us know so we can rearrange the agenda in the August meeting so we can hear the item while she's here in the room. We can ask questions like, when will there be compliance if it still isn't done? I'm concerned about this, and maybe we've got a connection. Does that sound good?
Hello?
There you go, Supervisor Miller's back. The electricity is back on. Fabulous. Chairman, I'll turn it over to the chair. Thank you.
Supervisor Carroll, you put this item on the agenda. If I understand, your concern is the possible liability that the county is looking at as a result of non-compliance with the request from the Arizona Daily Star, Tucson Sentinel, and Tucson Weekly. And I think we had asked, the clerk of the board was looking at those records and where we stand at this point on those on that request in terms of being responsive to the press and their requests for public records.
Madam Chair, board members, I believe that everything has been distributed back out to the press. We've received a clarification from one of the press members on the response, and that is where we're working right now. But everything that we've received to date has been distributed out.
Madam Chair,
Supervisor Miller.
we have responded to all public records requests effective as of June 30th. We have responded to them all fully and completely. And Mr. Carroll is clearly going way beyond a simple presentation of factual information as he did in the last board meeting. He is presenting a biased point of view. This is clearly an attack on me personally and professionally in a coordinated attempt to influence the outcome of an election. It is no coincidence that in the last meeting, reporters knew there was an item on the agenda before I did, before we even received the agenda. I was informed by a member of the press that there was an item on the agenda. I found it very curious. We hadn't even received the addendum at that point. So people know exactly what is going on here. I will state clearly and unequivocally that we have fully complied with all public records requests as of June 30th.
Thank you, Supervisor Miller.
Madam Chair.
Supervisor Carroll.
I deny there's any collusion with myself and the media. Obviously, I don't set the agenda, nor did I set the last agenda. But Madam Chair, my question is, again, it's regarding responses to public records requests. There is not compliance currently from all board members. I know that we, in my office, have promptly and immediately, I say as soon as possibly that we could do it, have complied with a recent Freedom of Information Act request from a media outlet in town. It's all done, it's packaged and delivered. The update on the backups, I'd like to ask Mr. Weaver. Mr. Weaver, if there is non-compliance that can be proved, are we incurring liability for the taxpayers in this situation with one supervisor not providing all?
Madam Chair, as I stated earlier, we have fully and completely complied with every public records request as of June 30th.
Thank you, Supervisor Miller. Mr. Weaver?
Madam Chair, Supervisor Carroll, the matter right now probably rests mostly in the hands of the requesters. If they're not happy with what they've received, or they believe that there's stuff that they haven't gotten, there's a statute which allows them to file a legal action and have this reviewed by a judge. A judge will decide whether or not compliance has occurred. And there are certain sanctions that could be imposed as a result of that, such as attorney fees to the prevailing party, damages to the prevailing party. So if there has been non-compliance, there is potential liability for the county. But at this point, we're at an impasse, and it's really in the hands of the requesters.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Supervisor?
I just comment that that's a pretty strong statement from counsel in the midst of a board meeting. So what I would like to ask for is a written opinion based on that too, so that we have a clearer understanding of what our liability is in this matter. And I don't think that reflects on any one particular public records request, but I think it's a smart thing for us to understand, given all the hoopla and all the discussion surrounding this particular series of events. But I think it would be best for all if you could provide that in writing to us, Mr. Weaver. And thank you. And frankly, I think we ought to take a look at making it public right now.
All right. Supervisor Valdez?
Madam Chair, right now I've heard two different sides of this issue. Is there anyone here besides on this dais or on the phone who can tell me whether or not this public records request has been complied with or not?
Mr. Valadez, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, I believe I asked someone other than a board member. That I come forward.
Supervisor Miller?
Madam Chair, I will state yet again, we have fully and completely complied with all public records requests as of June 30th. Unless there's something that has been sent in the last few days that I'm not aware of. But as of June 30th, we have replied and completely and fully to all public records requests. And if Mr. Carroll keeps the accusations alive, I'd like him to present proof right now. How about it, Supervisor Carroll? Do you have proof?
Madam Chair, I believe I still have the floor.
Yes, you do.
Madam Chair, okay, so we're having a theoretical discussion. I can accept that, but I need an answer to a theoretical question. The issue that I'm trying to process in my mind right now is the last board meeting we took an official position as a county and as a board. Mr. Carroll, again, in a theoretical discussion that we're having right now, it says he's concerned about potential financial liability or legal liability to this county. But if this board and this county took an official position and there would theoretically be a finding against that, Mr. Weaver, because we took a position and that would not be in compliance with that position, and we made that very clear, whose financial and legal liability would it be?
Madam Chair, Supervisor Valdez, I have to look into that more deeply. It would depend a lot on the action that's filed and how it's filed. But I think ultimately it's still the liability of the board, because it would be one supervisor acting in their official capacity, and we've had those situations before.
Madam Chair, Mr. Weaver, the motion was very, very clear that if theoretically there was an action that violated the intent of this board and the official position of this county, that person was no longer acting in their official capacity. So how is it that we've still retained legal responsibility and liability?
I don't know that you have any legal responsibility or liability. I mean, it would depend on the action that's filed, who it's filed against, and what the allegations are. But, you know, Supervisor Miller is an elected official. She's acting in her official capacity, and generally speaking, she's covered by the county for any legal fees associated with that or liability associated with that, as long as she's in the course and scope of her duties. And what we have now is an apparent disagreement among board members about the status of this case. And I'm not in a position to say one way or another factually what the truth is.
I'm not really concerned about the disagreement amongst board members. I'm concerned about financial and legal liability, period, in a theoretical discussion, particularly based on the fact that we took a very clear position as a board and as a county. So the disagreement, I don't care about. My question, I mean, the real issue, and maybe I need to do a little more research, but I mean, we took a very, very, very clear position as a board. We instructed the county attorney about the official position of this board. And if someone is violating that position, theoretically again, how is it we retain, I just don't get how we retain that liability if we've taken a position contrary to such actions theoretically. So if we could analyze that train of thought in the written opinion that Supervisor Elias has talked about, we'd really appreciate that as well. To give you a little more time than other time.
Yes, sir.
Madam Chair.
Supervisor Carroll.
Madam Chair, truly I appreciate the input from other board members, and this is, again, it's about incurring liability for the taxpayers. That's what we need a written
Madam Chair?
legal opinion from
Supervisor
Mr.
Carroll
Weaver
has the floor.
about. If the liability goes to the individual board member who's in a dispute with the media, that's up to I thought, the position that we voted on at the last meeting to be, I guess, defined. But I will look forward to a legal opinion in writing from Mr. Weaver about this. I obviously have a list of questions that I'd like to also submit, but at this point I think it's important that public records are responded to promptly and immediately, as my office has done, and I'm still concerned about other offices not doing so. That's for the record. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Miller.
Madam Chair, the fact that I am responding in my official capacity seems clear, and it was public record, not private record. And as a result of that, I believe I should be represented by the county attorney and the board in my official capacity. However, I will wait to hear what the county attorney has to say on that. But we have complied fully and completely, and no one has produced anything that states otherwise. I'm tired of the allegations. If you have something, let's put it out there. Last time you were Supervisor Carroll was waving around a document which wasn't even submitted as background material, but I found out later it was a document that he was waving around accusing me of not turning over that had in fact been turned over. So these allegations, it is really clear what's going on here, and continue your campaigning against me professionally and personally. And without any evidence, I question your motivation. I'm done.
Thank you, Supervisor Miller. Supervisor Elias.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have some members of the press that are here that ultimately have sent in those very public records requests that were questioned. Can I ask you, without holding you to any kind of binding answer, given the circumstance that you're in, do you feel that as of June 30, your public records requests have been responded to correctly?
I not.
Please speak into the microphone when you do that, gentlemen, and identify yourself if you would, just to be kind to me.
Joe Ferguson with the Arizona.
No, you gotta press the magic button there, Joe.
Joe Ferguson, Arizona Daily Star. At this time, the Daily Star does not believe Ally Miller has fully complied with our request for emails conducted over private emails regarding public business.
Thank you.
Dylan Smith, TucsonSentinel.com. It's our assessment, based on the evidence that we have been given and testimony and interviews we've done, that Supervisor Miller and her employees have not complied with our public records requests, especially regarding public business done on private email accounts, Facebook messages, and other messaging systems.
Thank you, I appreciate that. See, that's why I think it's important that we get that legal opinion from you, Mr. Weaver, because we are facing some serious problems here. Whether or not we're, you know, the thing is about Miss Miller and whether she gets reelected. The truth is that our taxpayers are on the hook for this, and Pima County's reputation is on the hook for this. And that I do take it.
As is my reputation, Supervisor Elias.
I understand that, Ally, but there are larger considerations, frankly.
There are larger considerations. I have testified here that I have turned over everything.
All right, I don't
And
think.
I resent the allegations without any evidence. No one has produced an ounce of evidence proving otherwise. And unless you have that, I know exactly what's going on here, and so does the public.
I think that we are all out of order on this at this point. Supervisor, to the point, but then we're going to conclude this.
Madam Chair, we have, for the public, we have for the record heard Supervisor Miller say that she's in full compliance. We've heard the press say that she's not, and that's between them, obviously. I'm concerned about the taxpayer, and that's my issue with the public records request or any Freedom of Information Act request that comes across my desk or any of the rest of the board members or the administrators at this dais. I believe Supervisor Miller is distorting this situation, that I held up a piece of paper.
Madam Chair, point of order.
That proved
You're
what I
out
was
of order.
saying.
We let him go out of control in the last board
You're
meeting.
both out of control.
Madam
Then
Chair.
please end
So
it.
please, stop.
Madam Chair. I will look
Supervisor-
forward to this being reviewed again at the next board meeting in August. I'll put it on the agenda again, and we'll see what the county attorney's written opinion of the situation is, as well as the clerk's update, and as I'm sure the media by then. Supervisor Miller and I will leave this at that point, but I stand by what I held up, what I said this dais. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Carroll. Let's move on to the rest of the agenda.